So, you may be thinking of putting a book of poetry out into the world, and you're like, I want to do this in a way that's going to, you know, kind of put everything off on the right foot, just getting started, because there's no going back, especially if this is your first collection. We want to make sure we're doing things right. So today we're going to be speaking with a poet who has recently done that in a way that I think is truly interesting, and that you may be able to get some ideas for your own book launch upcoming. So please, ladies and gentlemen, give a nice, warm welcome to Cave Canem Poets, Alexa Patrick. Hey!
Hey,
How are you today, miss?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, friend?
We're doing okay. We're doing okay. I do want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to speak with us. It's greatly, greatly appreciated.
Of course, anything for you.
And you have a book.
I do have a book.
Oh my gosh. Look at
Here
that
it
bad boy. Hey.
is. Here it is. Yes, Remedies for Disappearing. It was published by Haymarket in this June of 2023. So we just hit the 1 year anniversary.
Oh, it's like, oh, it's a 1 year baby. Oh.
I know.
Has it done for you all the things that you were expecting it to?
Some of what it was some of what I was expecting, and then some other things that have been unexpected. But that I think is the way that all creative projects go. I think it's
Facts.
been delightful, and also very challenging at the same exact time. So
Mm,
yeah, it's been a really wonderful experience. I feel
mhm.
sharpened.
If you could, I sent you a list of questions and immediately I'm veering off track and I'm so sorry.
Okay.
But like, I'm interested in this challenges because there's lots of people who are maybe thinking about getting a first book out and they're not entirely sure what to expect.
Mhm.
What would you kind of, and obviously everyone's experience is different, but what are some things that kind of hit you or kind of blindsided you a little bit, good and bad, about the process, would you say?
Well, I think the main thing is that there's no map, right? There's no like guide or wiki how really on how to effectively push a book, let alone a book of poetry and a debut book of poetry. So there are a lot of things that you kind of have to make up yourself, and so
Mhm.
I don't think that I was prepared to to really sell a book. Like I think that I was prepared to write a book. I was writing the thing. It's what I know
Yeah.
how to do. But then to step into the position of someone who has to sell a product like that then it can be a bit jolting. Um, so that was the main challenge or growing pain. And so then you want to figure out how to do that with the most integrity and do that in a way that feels the best for you. And so that's what um, I've been trying to figure out.
When does pushing the book stop?
I don't know. I don't know. I think well, here's the thing, right? Like I think it depends. Again, I don't think that there's really a formula to it. I think that
Yeah.
you need to figure out what you have the capacity for. For me, I had a homie who told me to do the most that I can do for a year, and then take it from there. So for me, I gave myself a year to tour, to reach out to different bookstores around the country,
Yeah.
to try and think of interesting and thoughtful and intentional collaborations, things like that. And I was doing that all while I'm a programs director for a nonprofit. I perform outside of just being an author, so there are a lot of different balls in the air for me.
Yeah.
But I also want to make sure that I do this book justice, and so I felt like that was a crucial period for my book.
I do remember hearing about just at Cave how the last year hasn't necessarily been the year for writing as much as the year for everything else related to the book, which is
Yeah, 100%.
we don't have time for, like, how do you do it? Like how do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's tough. You really need to find a balance. And I think that you also just have to be kind to yourself and give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Like if, my creative energy is being put towards marketing a book and less towards, you know, writing the next book, then like that's also okay. I only have so much time, I only have so much energy, and I also, you know, I value sleep. So like we can shift as we need to.
Hmm.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I think, just from hearing you talk about, that I thought was really creative and what really made me be like, even at Cave, I was like, I want to ask her about it, but I don't know how to do it. Was you mentioned that when you launched the book, and I saw the pictures, you're like, we are going to do a prom for the book.
Yeah.
I want to know everything because I think it goes like this. I'm really, really, really about with poets this concept of like trying to not just, let me rephrase. I think there is an assumption that the work we do is already of a high quality.
Mm.
People assume that. So the next thing is, how do I get people to converse about my book, think about my book, talk about my book when I'm not in the room, when I'm out
Hmm.
of the space, on their own, unprovoked? How am I putting my book in position, or my work in position, or my poems in position to begin those sorts of conversations? And so when I heard about the prom, I was like, yes, like not just oh, we're just gonna reserve a room at like a place and just do a reading. Like no, we're showing up. We got a theme. We got a thing. I would like to know any detail that you can give about the planning, the thought process, how this idea even came about. Anything you're willing to share with us would be immensely helpful.
Of course, of course. Well, first and foremost, I think like whenever I think about like any of my creative pursuits, the thing at the center is like joy and fun and play. You know, if it doesn't feel like play, a lot of times I don't want to do it. So like even in very serious spaces, which I'm sure that you saw when you were in my group at Cave Canem, that like I joke around a lot. Like I enjoy play. I think it makes yeah, it makes the work it just makes the work easier. And so when I was thinking about how I wanted my book to enter the world, I was thinking about how it can feel like play as well. So there was that. I knew it was going to be something that was going to be fun. Um,
So it wasn't
the
just like you were looking in your closet and you're like, I have these prom dresses I've never used. I want to.
Absolutely not. Well. Also, there's that. I think that I think a lot of it is my personality. I like to, yeah, I like to perform and play dress up and all that stuff. But like in addition to all that, so much of my book is about high school, is about growing up in a predominantly white high school, and about the teenage rites of passage that look different for Black girls specifically because of the bodies that they exist in. So I have a series of prom poems as well that um, explore kind of the mourning of the prom that we didn't or don't necessarily get, um, because we're in a predominantly white space, et cetera, et cetera. So that was also a theme that was happening within the book. And so, again, merging that with the idea of fun and play, I thought the way that would really honor the work that was put into the book, and honor the work that is in the book is, maybe I could throw myself and throw other Black girls the prom that we deserved. So I was pulling at themes that are in the book. Yeah, I was pulling at themes that are in the book, and then also pulling from just what I think feels good and feels joyful and beautiful. Um, and so from there it grew, and I thought about all the folks who I'd want to invite. I wanted it to feel as collaborative as possible. I wanted it, and then also just from a book selling standpoint, the more people you have involved, those are also people who are promoting the event. They're people who
Mhm.
are pulling in their own audience. And then it just again feels better. So yeah, I started thinking about what that would look like. Then money.
Let's talk about that aspect of it. We've run events before.
Yes, yes. You know, you want to pay all the folks who are involved. You need to, get a venue, reserve that venue. You need to I wanted a photographer, I wanted a DJ, I wanted multiple readers who I referred to as the prom court. I needed decorations. It's a lot of money. So luckily in Washington D.C., where I live now, we have the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities, and so they will give individuals grants for events, especially if there are events that include other arts practitioners within the city. And so I applied and received a $10,000 grant for to
Can I slow you down there just for a moment? How did you find out about the grants?
So I'm already a DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities fellow. I think it's a really great resource for artists in general in the Washington D.C. area. So they give out unrestricted grants to artists, and then they also have other grants as well. And so I was just familiar with them. I will say to other folks who are interested in doing something similar to look at any you know, any grant suppliers, any commissions that you all have in your area, to see what might be available to you. Because I mean, the prom, wouldn't really have been possible without them, or it would have been. I just would have been out of a good chunk of cash.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you spend the whole budget?
Yes. And a little bit over.
So a book launch event that we're looking at maybe $11,000-$12,000
Yeah,
potentially.
it's I think I made it out below 11,000.
Okay,
But
Bose
it's
is
still,
a bit over
yeah,
a number. Yeah.
but and a lot of that was also due to like the little things that I really wanted to do that didn't
I mean, if you
necessarily.
get the grant, like if they're covering 90% of it, it's like, all right, I can.
When I tell you, Geoff, corsages and boutonnieres are very expensive. And so, I needed to come out of pocket for
That's
those.
yeah.
It's, these aren't the important things. I also like, um, I'm so silly. I created like an advertisement, an ad for the launch as well. That was a promposal. So like I hired a production company to film me doing a promposal to myself with like a whole bunch of posters. So I'm like standing outside of a window with a boombox, and I have these posters that are basically asking people to come to my prom. I can send you the. I
Yes.
can send it exists on Instagram and on YouTube, and circulated that. So it was just it was a lot going on. But it was so worth it. It was so much fun.
Yeah. You leaned into it, which is
100%.
huge.
Yeah. And that also, you mentioned before not wanting something to like be, or you don't need a launch to be the standard reading. It can be, and that is fine, especially if you don't necessarily have the funding or the capacity to plan something like this. This was a lot of work to plan. That said, when you have an event that even folks who aren't interested in poetry would go to, like, then those are new readers. They're folks who you can latch onto, like, oh, you're interested in the idea of like Black girlhood and prom. Then I wonder if I could interest you in these poems.
Mm.
And then all the
Mhm.
folks who were readers as well were reading pieces that were on theme in a way that had to do with youth or Black girlhood, stuff like that. So
I
yeah.
I think that's what you have to do. Like I really I just kind of want to recap some things that it sounds like you've been telling me. So, first of all, you identified in your collection that, hey, I have this whole series related to prom. This could be, I could make something around this.
Mhm.
Then from there, we were like, okay, where are all the components that can lean into prom? Or sorry, sometimes my internet spikes.
Yeah.
So what what are some of the things that can lean in prom? They're like the venue, the decorations, the flowers, all these things that give the prom feel. I want it to feel like prom. Make no mistake, this is prom 100, like, but you need that. You can't if you take a step back and you don't do it, people feel that. They know when you're not committing. You know what I mean? Like I think it's great you had an idea and you committed.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'll also say, like, I had the privilege to commit. Like, it was an undertaking for sure, and I definitely had, um, a couple like tantrums beforehand because again, it was a lot of work, and it was very overwhelming, and so.
Yeah.
I understand, folks who are like, let me just go for the lower lift, and but I also I wanted something
Yeah.
fun. And I also am lucky because I have such a fantastic artist community here in
Hmm.
DC and just around the country in general. I have a fantastic set of friends and like well-connected friends who have been able to connect me to like whether it be like a venue or DJs, things like that, that would end up making the event just like possible and
Right.
beautiful. So I also want to just like underscore that it is a
For
privilege
sure.
too to have the kind of capital,
Hmm.
the social capital and the creative capital to be able to pull something like this off. Um, yeah, but it was so much fun, Jeff. It was so much fun. Like I think about it all the time.
It reminds me a lot. So my wife and I, we got married. We had a pirate themed wedding. So like
Wow.
that's like dressed up as pirates. Everyone was a pirate. It was on a boat. Like it was like a boat that was like made during like World War II. It looks like a pirate ship and things like that. Everything.
Yeah.
So everything you're talking about, just in terms of getting everything on point with that, is just like, I mean, you're basically planning like a mini wedding almost.
Yes. 100%. a
Like
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
which which yes, I've been married, but I'll be honest, my wife did the bulk of the work. I found the addresses, and um, she was like, "I'm handling this." I'm like, "Okay." I tried. I was just, I was slow with too many things. She's just like, "All right, I'm gonna just do this," and she did
Yeah,
she
that's
did a great
exactly
job.
how it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so funny.
yeah. Um, and something that we've been having lots of discussions with other posts and things like that. And the thing that just keeps coming up is community, 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 people, people, people. And I think this is something that, Alex, do you have your MFA?
No.
Okay. Um, I don't have an MFA either. I mean, that's a whole other discussion about getting a first book out without an MFA. That's a whole other. Alex, I could talk to you for days. But I think one thing, just from talking with a lot of people who are kind of doing poetry the traditional route, that I think gets downplayed a lot is the less of the craft stuff and more of all the other elements. Come on, connection.
Oh, oh, there you are. Are
Sorry, I'm
you
back. I'm back. I
okay?
was like, I know I
Here you are.
froze. I know I froze. Let me rephrase. One of the things that I think like the traditional root poetry does a lot of work on is the craft talk and things like
Mhm.
that. Not so much on the relationship. Like it happens and people do it, but I think if we're really trying to take our work seriously, at some point we need to focus on the relationships and that sort
Yeah.
of cultivation because it's really
Well,
important.
it is very important, and I think I'm lucky. I came up or I came into poetry through slam. And slam is an inherently communal form of poetry. Um, it requires exchange. It requires a kind of different muscle than a lot of like the solitary work of just like page poetry. Um, and so, even like as I was coming up through slam and as I was finding my poetic voice, that was done always around people. So, I find that those two things go in tandem. And then as I've toured this book, as I was looking for readers to present at this book launch, even many of them were folks who I found through Slam and through that community. The tour stops I made around the country are from that community. Those are the couches that, you know, I've been invited to stay on. Those are like, it's, that is what it is. That is the infrastructure around being able to write and sell a book for me. And it's also, again, what makes it feel like play. It's what makes it joyful. Like I am not interested in any kind of like rigid or sterile creative practice at all, at all. Like I will not listen. Like I'm just, you know, and so, you know, it's necessary for me to have my people and to be around my people in order to do what I do.
I never did Slam. A lot of the poets just I'm in circles with did Slam.
Mhm.
I know the approach to Slam nowadays is a little bit different than it was 5-10 years ago. And I mean, the one thing I'll say is that if you were involved in the Slam circuit, it's the people that it introduced people to seems to be such a huge benefit to all the people I know who went through it.
Yeah.
You know,
It's really fantastic. And then like, I don't know if you remember, but like, so well at Cave Canem, you know, there's a good number of us that were from the, you know, Slam community. Many of us
right.
met through either like Brave New Voices or through CUPSI, which is the College Union
Yeah.
Poetry Slam Invitational. My first CUPSI, and that was my first time slamming. My first friend there was Mia Willis.
Ah, okay.
And so,
Hey.
you know, you kind of have these really beautiful, wonderful full circle moments where it's just like, you know, your first friend in the Slam community, Mia, and then we're all graduating Cave Canem together is the next time that I see them, you know. And, you know, during that time, you know, I have a book out, Mia's book is coming
Right,
out.
Mia's coming out.
Like, it's just like, you know, it's so great to have these kind of touch points where we can actually witness each other evolve and to be there to support and amplify that kind of evolution.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I wasn't aware that of how that's how you met Mia like years ago. That's so it's like like full
Yeah, that's
circle.
how I met
Like,
Mia. That's how I met Sasha. Who else? It's how I've been aware of Amani and Penda. Like there, you know, there's just it's what it is. And I think that if we're nerding out and talking about Cave Canem for a little bit, then like, you know, those kinds of spaces can be intimidating too. And so, you know, when you have again like those kinds of folks, it feels like having home, you know, spaces like that feel less intimidating, and you feel like, oh no, my people are here, I'm gonna be good.
So I think if there's any takeaway, I think for people watching this, if you're not involved in Slam, I was not involved in Slam. We didn't. The college I went to, we didn't have a CUPSI team and stuff like that. So I think it can be, if you're adjacent to those circles but not involved in them, it can feel like, man, how do I? You can feel outside, so like trying to find ways to get in. So I really would encourage people, if you're not involved in those things, you don't have to be involved, but I do think you do want to try. There were other things that, you know, I was fortunate enough to get involved in. So I would encourage you, if you find yourself in a situation like that, I would encourage you to find your own community and also understand that you're still welcome in other circles.
Yes.
So I think you have to remember that as well.
It's so important. And I think that you definitely do not need to be a part of Slam. You do not need to be a part of Slam. I truly, the only reason I joined Slam was also, I'm like, wow, these folks are so cool. Like, it was the people that made me want to join Slam. It wasn't even the poetry. Like, I love poetry, but like, it was just a vehicle to be around these folks who are brilliant and who dress really cool, you know? Like, that's it. But you can also find similar things, like whether it be an open mic scene, whether it be, there's a really great program called Creative Mornings, which I really enjoy too.
Okay.
You have heard of it?
I have not heard of it.
Oh,
No.
Freedom Mornings is fantastic. It's not necessarily even poetry specific, but it's creative specific. So
Hmm.
in different cities around the country and actually around the world, once a month in the morning, they will have like a creative lecture around a theme. And that is the theme that everyone around the world will be doing for that month. And so it could be
Right.
like something like connection, and so then they'll invite a creative or a local creative
Hmm.
to speak
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
about that theme and how it manifests in that work. And so that has been a great way for me recently to meet a lot of dope musicians, writers, photographers. It's just everyone in that space, but who share kind of similar mission. It's dope.
That actually circles back to a point I wanted to make. One of the things when you were describing the prom and the readers, and I know we're getting up against time. I don't want to keep you all day. One of the words you kept using is like collaboration, 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 collab,
Yes.
collab, collab. When you were to take us back to like the book launch, what exactly does that look like, though? You know, it's one thing to say, "Oh, we collaborated," but cool. What does that actually mean? What did you do? What did these people? What were their roles?
Yeah, so it looks like different things depending on, what you actually want to do. For me, um, you know, I can tell you all the different roles that were involved in this and what I was thinking about. So,
For sure.
you know, so I needed, as a part of the show, I needed a DJ. We need music. It's prom. I needed a host because I didn't want to have to do that myself. It was my book launch. I wanted someone else to be able to keep doing the show. Um,
Just to pause on that point, like for in case people haven't run events before, yeah, if you can do that, that's if you're featuring an event, you're hosting an event, and you're trying to host at the same time. That's
too much.
if you can delegate, please do. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt.
yeah. No, it, and I already was doing so much. It's just I needed to have my brain not have to think about run a show. I had or hired an ASL interpreter. Um,
Was it Bill? Or what's his name? Was it for? Yay!
Well, it was so fun. Yeah, and unfortunately he wasn't able to make it last
Oh,
minute, but he was hired. Okay. We had, I believe, was it five? I think five different readers um
that's
who
kind of a lot of readers.
it was a lot of readers, but I wanted a prom court. I wanted a prom
Right.
court. Each of them read maybe 1 to 2 pieces. They did not read for a long period of time. I think I gave
Okay,
them
that makes more
5 minutes
sense.
each. 5 minutes each. But so again, it had that kind of movement and energy of almost an open mic, but you know that all the folks that are on the mic are going to be fire. Many of them had books. We partnered with a bookstore, which was right next door to the venue. So they
Mm,
were able to sell everyone's book as well. Um,
smart.
yeah. And then the venue itself, um, it was a cafe slash like venue space, and they were taking care of drinks and concessions and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I also had someone who had a lot of production experience, be a production consultant, and so she was supporting with like making sure that people are checked in, and just keeping kind of like the background stuff up and making sure
Understood.
that
Yeah.
worked out. Oh, and then this was something that was really cool that saved me a lot of money. Is there's a store in DC that I really enjoy, called Salt and Sundry. I really like their home decor and their vibe, and they also have a lot of plants in there. So I asked them if they would want to be a sponsor of the event in exchange for
Mm,
lending me decorations, and they did that. So
so
those are all the different roles. Yeah.
when we talk about sponsorship, did you have to like during the event? Did you have to give them a shout out? Was it just like a name on like a banner? What did that look like?
Yeah, it's really interesting because they didn't really give me any strict rules, but like I did I shouted them out. I put their logo on the program that I made. I put it on the flyer. Um, yeah, so I made sure that they were shouted out
Right.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that helped significantly. And then yeah, everything was just, it looked really good. It looked pretty, it felt good. And then maybe lastly, just because these are folks that weren't employed, but folks who I just love dearly, who I think love me dearly, they helped me set up. I had my best friends and my mom help me set up, and so that
Come
took
on,
maybe,
moms.
like,
Yeah.
my mom was helping me out for like 4 to 5 hours day of the event.
That's so.
Yeah.
It's all community affair thing. This is so good.
Yes, and that is exactly what it is. Oh, and then I'll also shout out my homie Dio, who was the photographer of the event, because you want to make sure, like, what is prom without those very corny prom photos? Even though Dio's work is not corny at all, we did have a kind of a corny space where you could be corny with your friends, and then also he was taking pictures and video throughout the event, and it was just like, yeah. And so these are folks that I met different times in my life that, you know, would have been a part of the celebration regardless, but now they're able to like actually come in and practice their
Hmm.
art, you know, in celebration of this book launch. And it just, like, I think
Good.
it supported with the overarching, like, the overall energy of the thing. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a question about food that you mentioned. So, because a lot of times if you're organizing an event around food, there's different ways you can handle it. It could be catering, it could be an event that already handles food. So, did you have to pay for food, or since it was at a venue, because the people who came could just get their own stuff?
So I'll also say this: I don't think we had food. We definitely had
Oh,
alcohol.
like okay, drinks. Okay, drinks, fine. Right.
Um, but I didn't pay
Okay.
for I didn't pay for that. Well, and I will say too, again, this goes to creative community. My homie owns that cafe. Like, I
Okay.
wouldn't, you know, and so I ended up getting a good rate, and then he let me know. He's like,
Hmm.
yeah, no, I wanna hit you for some maybe a poetry in the future. So, like, I'll give you this price, and then when I reach out to you, you know, you help me out. And I was like, cool,
Hmm.
I got you.
Hmm.
And so again, like, so much of being able for, well, at least for me, so much of being able to effectively sell this book has been having a vast creative community, even outside of the poetry community or writer
Hmm.
community specifically. Knowing photographers, knowing this kind of, you know, uh, cultural architect that owns this
Hmm.
cafe. No, like, it's all of that. It's all of that.
It's because we literally just had a stream yesterday. The stream was about like 6 people who can help really further your poetry career,
Mm,
and a quick summary is like someone like a peer, someone who is like maybe 1 or 2 years behind you in terms of like where they are in their journey, someone who's like
mm,
1 or 2 years ahead of you, but then some other stuff. For instance, like what you're mentioning, and like what you mentioned also with this creative morning, like people in another space, creative space, but not even necessarily a creative space.
mm.
Like having someone with that, someone connected with a venue is really.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, I think I want to be clear that you don't, like, you want connections with folks to be authentic. You don't want it to
100%.
be, you don't want it to be a means to, like, oh, you
Mm-hmm.
got access to this thing, let me be friends with you. It's like genuinely just meeting people and seeing, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and being curious about what it is that they do. It is an exchange, so not just like pulling things from them, but seeing what you can support, or like how you might support them in their own work, and just like, yeah, being invested in the overall mission of whatever they're doing, and like just seeing where you are aligned with other folks, and like then from there seeing what is possible. But yeah, those
Yeah.
connections have been crucial, crucial, crucial.
Yeah. Alexa, maybe one final question for you.
Yeah.
Um, so someone, let's imagine someone has their book. They got their published date, like they're already accepted. All they're waiting for is the book to actually come out.
Hmm.
What is something, if you had to give them like one thing to think about for their forthcoming book, what would you tell them to think about?
I would tell them to think about what is a tour that will feel good for you. Not a tour that you or a launch or release that you think you should have, but one that you feel like would actually you'd be excited to actually participate in. I think a lot of where I came up against challenge was like um, I got caught up in the shoulds.
Mm,
I should have this many people in every single room that I read in. I should travel to these states and be in these cities. I should have these kinds of co-readers. When really, what I should have been focusing on is is what feels good and what feels right. A lot of times when I try to force something that you know might not have felt great, but it was something that like, oh well, it's impressive, you have this name on this flyer or you have this venue. It added so much pressure, and it was
mm,
stressful, and then that led to more disappointment if it didn't fit the expectation of what
mm,
I had dreamt up in my mind. um yeah, and then the things that maybe um I would think to be, oh well, this is more small potato stuff. Like those were the things that just felt easier and felt better because I'm with my friends, because it's less pressure, because even though this might not be a well-known venue, it is a venue that is invested in my work, that is familiar with my work,
mm,
and invested in my overall journey altogether. And so they give more time and more energy to promoting it. Like it's those moments that I think folks should gravitate towards. Um, yeah, and it's just it makes promotion so much easier. So that's what you should think about. What feels good for you? Do it.
I think that's a good step to take. I think that also kind of speaks to focusing on the things you have control over.
Mm,
I don't necessarily have control over how many people come to my event, but I can control if I have the event. You know what I mean? Like um,
yeah.
it's gonna be, and also leaning into the things that come easy to you. Like you mentioned, like some things feel harder, some things feel easier. That can be a sign.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah. I love
could
that.
be.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
For sure.
cool. All right, Alexa, I'm gonna close this out. If you can hang on just for a moment while I shut everything. But thanks to Alexa for joining us. If you guys have questions for Alexa, you can find all of her information down at the bottom, or you can look at the video description. Reach out, find out more about her collection, get her collection. I asked for it at Cave, and she ran out of books, so that's one way it's good because it's selling out everywhere. Thank you guys for your time. We will see you all later. Hope you have a good day, have a good night, and a good